it's the middle class itself. In the modern economy, stability now costs more than effort alone can provide. And for millions of working people, the rules that once made life predictable no longer apply. There was a time when the idea of a middle class felt structurally sound. Income rose alongside productivity. Jobs offered continuity. Costs followed predictable paths. People didn't expect wealth. They expected durability. A single career could last decades. A setback didn't threaten everything at once. Progress felt slow, but real. It was friction, manageable friction. The system worked not because it was generous, but because it allowed space. Space to breathe, space to recover, space to remain standing without constant motion. For a while, this arrangement made sense, economically, socially, and psychologically. But systems don't stay still, and stability, when not protected, quietly erodes. The shift didn't arrive as a single crisis, it arrived as a series of small adjustments. Productivity increased, efficiency improved, markets accelerated, but income stopped moving at the same pace. The relationship between work and security loosened. Rewards drifted upward toward ownership, scale, and leverage. Meanwhile, essential costs continued to rise. Housing became tighter, healthcare more complex, education more expensive. Each change felt manageable on its own. Together, they reshaped the foundation. The system didn't break. It evolved. But the middle class was built for a slower world, and slow structures strain when speed becomes the priority. From the outside, the middle class still looks intact. People are employed. Homes are occupied. Schedules are full. Screens glow late into the night. Calendars remain crowded. Life appears functional. But functionality is not the same as security. A life can look stable while being financially fragile. A career can appear respectable while offering little protection. The middle class hasn't disappeared from view. It has disappeared from margin. There is less room for mistakes, less room for interruption, less room for rest. Stability once meant having space between income and anxiety. Now that space is thin and shrinking, and thin margins turn ordinary life into a constant calculation. As stability weakened, substitutes emerged. Debt replaced progress. Busyness replaced security. Appearance replaced resilience. Credit didn't feel dangerous at first. It felt helpful. A bridge between today and tomorrow. A way to maintain the expected shape of life. Working more hours felt responsible. Staying constantly productive felt necessary. These substitutes worked. Briefly, they smoothed the surface. They delayed friction. But substitutes don't create foundations. They only mask their absence. And over time, the gap between effort and outcome widened. Quietly, persistently. Modern systems don't dismantle the middle class intentionally. They simply no longer prioritize it. Stability is slow. Predictability is inefficient. Maintenance doesn't scale well. Systems now reward movement, not continuity. Growth, not balance. Acceleration, not preservation. Ownership travels faster than labor. Capital moves more freely than people. And the middle class was built on continuity. On staying power, not velocity. When systems accelerate, anything designed to remain steady begins to strain. Not because it failed, but because it was never meant to move this fast. This shift doesn't only affect finances. It reshapes how people understand themselves. When stability disappears, people don't blame the structure. They blame their reflection. I should be further by now. I must be doing something wrong. Burnout becomes normal. Anxiety becomes ambient. Exhaustion becomes expected. People work harder, not because it helps, but because stopping feels dangerous. Over time, the question changes. Not, is this sustainable? But why can't I keep up? When a system removes stability, people internalize the instability, and a generation raised to expect progress begins to feel personally defective. Eventually, the pressure fades into the background. Survival becomes standard. Resilience becomes praised. Fatigue becomes invisible. The absence of security stops feeling abnormal. It becomes the baseline. People adapt quietly, expect less, question less. Not because they agree, but because constant tension leaves little room for protest. When instability becomes normal, the middle class doesn't disappear loudly. It dissolves into endurance. So the question isn't whether people are working hard enough. The real question is this: what happens to a society when stability becomes inaccessible, even for those who follow the rules? And what replaces the middle class when effort no longer guarantees balance? The middle class didn't vanish because people failed. It faded because the system moved on. Not with malice, not with intent, but with indifference. Understanding this doesn't offer easy comfort. It doesn't restore old promises. But it does something important. It removes misplaced blame. Because when stability disappears, the problem is rarely individual effort. It's the structure that no longer holds. Simple Wealth Channel isn't about stock tips, quick money, or financial hacks. It's about understanding the systems we live inside of, and the human cost they quietly create. If this kind of perspective matters to you, consider subscribing. Share this video with someone who feels the pressure, but hasn't found the words for it yet. And if any part of this story felt familiar, leave a comment, not to argue, but to reflect. Because clarity begins when we stop consuming noise and start asking better questions. People are working hard enough. The real question is this: what happens to a society when stability becomes inaccessible, even for those who follow the rules? And what replaces the middle class when effort no longer guarantees balance? The middle class didn't vanish because people failed. It faded because the system moved on. Not with malice. Of security stops feeling abnormal. It becomes the baseline. People adapt quietly, expect less, question less. Not because they agree, but because constant tension leaves little room for protest. When instability becomes normal, the middle class doesn't disappear loudly. It dissolves into endurance. So the question isn't whether people are working hard enough. The real question is this: what happens to a society when stability becomes inaccessible, even for those who follow the rules? And what replaces